Now there's so many new products and marketing campaigns aimed at four-wheel drive owners these days, from new technologies to important upgrades like wheels and tyres. But with all the marketing hype surrounding them, it's hard to distinguish from what is genuine gear and what is just marketing hype. Now I know that there are many people who think that I've already overcomplicated the Landcruiser as it stands today, and look, there are a lot of aftermarket accessories on this vehicle. But in today's episode, I want to go over my top 5 touring accessories that, if I had my time over again, I would add back to this vehicle, no questions asked. Now there's two things to note in this episode. Firstly, we're not covering big ticket items and things like bull bars, wheels, tyres and suspension and that sort of thing, but more focusing on the little things that often get overlooked but are really handy and in my setup get used quite frequently. And a second thing to note is everything I'm talking about today has either been built and designed by myself or purchased at full retail price without sponsorship. But without further ado, let's get straight into it. Now first up, and in no particular order, is going to be a roof rack. Now I'm not going to specifically talk about the Rhino rack platform that I've got mounted on my Landcruiser, but more specifically the helpfulness and usefulness of a well-designed and well laid out roof rack. One that can hold all of the gear that belongs to be outside, but is also readily accessible and lockable too. Now, as we see it here, we have a slimline storage case, a fixed 100 watt glass solar panel, a 270 degree awning, max tracks, tie down points, shovel mount, camping lights and light bars mounted up here. Ensuring you're aware of the roof rack limitations and the limitations and ratings set by the vehicle manufacturer, storing some of the big and dirty bulky items up high and out of the valuable storage inside of your cruiser can be incredibly helpful. Last year I had a completely different setup designed for a 3-week solo camping trip, and this enabled me to have quick and easy access to other types of gear like swags and camping equipment. The max tracks have standard pins, the shovel takes about 3 seconds to remove, the storage box is easy to unlock and access from the side of the vehicle, and the awning, well, it takes about 30 seconds. All of the products that I've used on my roof rack and some of the other videos I've gone into much more detail in regards to this setup will be in the description below. But just ensure that if you are putting a roof rack on your four-wheel drive that you're loading it correctly, and keeping in mind that you are lifting at the center of gravity, so the vehicle can or may handle a little bit differently both on and off-road, and there is no doubt it will certainly affect your fuel consumption too. Now number 2 on my list is this. Now this is the Ultra Gauge MX 1.4. This little yet concise and reliable piece of equipment has been installed in the last 3 of my four-wheel drive builds, and it would be the first gadget I'd install again if I were to start a new build. The Ultra Gauge is vehicle specific and can be programmed by the user for various pieces of information. Now the best way I can describe this little device here is like looking through a virtual window into the inner workings of your engine. For example, the coolant temperature can be read off your main dash cluster. However, the Ultra Gauge provides a numeric value that can vary in my vehicle anywhere from 78 degrees Celsius to almost 110 degrees depending on the conditions, without this factory needle moving at all. Now personally, I monitor the coolant temperatures, the boost pressures, the transmission temps in both the torque converter and the main oil pan, intake temperatures and load value in percentage. Now what this means is I can alter my driving style based on some of the information that I'm receiving live from the engine, and this provides just a little bit of extra mechanical sympathy in some challenging terrains. Now I'll also include in this, just moving down into the center console, my EGT gauges. I personally built this bracket to house 2 digital gauges, one for each bank of 4 cylinders, to provide live and up-to-date figures of the exhaust gas temperatures, which is much more accurate than coolant temps and other factory dash instruments at providing information as to what is going on inside that engine. Now if you do own a 200 series Landcruiser, particularly a newer facelifted version, these can be programmed into the display in the Ultra Gauge. There's no need to add additional hardware. But this is not where this device ends. Because it uses an OBD2 port to plug into any vehicle built after 1997, it can also help to detect vehicle trouble codes. This helped me to quickly read and diagnose trouble codes last year when I experienced issues with my turbos. Now, if you run into issues that maybe aren't quite as significant as failed turbos and you're able to diagnose and fix them on the side of the track, this little device can also clear those dash warning lights, so it means you can get back up and running and on your way. Now back when I purchased this product for my Landcruiser a few years ago, there was nowhere to buy it in Australia. I had to purchase it from the US, but I'm glad to see that it's now changed and we do have Australian distributors. So again, links will be in the description below. But one thing I'll note about this particular unit and the last couple I've had in my previous four-wheel drives is that they've never failed. I've never had an issue with them. They always turn on every time the vehicle starts. The backlight always is the correct light based on ambient temperature, and it appears to be reading what looks like correct values. So it's a well-designed product that works exactly as it's designed. The number 3 on my list is by far the most useful and helpful addition I've made to this Landcruiser 200 series since owning it, and that is the ability to both store and have ready access to fresh water on the back of the vehicle. I have done a video on this previously in much more detail, but essentially I've mounted a brass tap to the far end of my tyre swing away that is plumbed to a SureFlow 12-volt water pump in the right-hand side drawer wing kit and sourced from a 55-litre stainless steel water tank mounted underneath the vehicle. Now, I won't lie, if you own a 200 series Landcruiser, there is a fair bit of work to replicate this setup, as I have replaced the factory sub-tank with a 180-litre diesel and 55-litre combined water tank that takes the place of that factory spare. So to get this to work, I've also had to purchase this rear tyre swing away, which, as annoying as it is, I would do the exact same thing if I had my time over again. Now, having the ability to carry 55 litres of fresh water storage in the Cruiser not only gives us the comfort knowing that we have this water in case of emergency while out exploring without our camper, but it was also the main source of water for both our drinking and washing last year on our 3-week Pilbara trip. For weekenders or shorter adventures, this water source here is our main source for all of our drinking, washing and showering water. But on our big lap as we travel around Australia, this 55 litres gives us the ability to cart fresh and reliable sourced water back to our camper when it's set up in remote locations, allowing us to stay a little bit more off-grid for a little bit longer. Now, this, with the fact that we have a plumbed-in Top-G digital flow meter, allows us to measure and find out exactly how much is in that water tank at any time. The fact that this tank is hard mounted underneath the Cruiser means that it's out of sight and out of mind, so it's really convenient, but it also means that it's not taking up valuable space in the back of our Landcruiser. And the fact that this tap is on the furthest extremity of this tyre swing away means that it's simple, clean and incredibly convenient to access that water. There's no hiding that we don't use it quite as much when we're towing our camper, but there's that peace of mind knowing that if we were to break down and become stranded, that we have this extra 55 litres of water that can help us last that little bit longer. Now, we also use it to wash our hands and feet after packing up the camper, and also days down at the beach, and I often use it for cups of tea while travelling on the road. Now, we don't have to go very far to find number 4, as it's inside the rear of the Cruiser, and that is the rear Cruiser setup. Now, I know it's very subjective, as not everyone sets their vehicle up solely for touring like I have, as it is quite limiting, but there's one aspect to the setup that I absolutely love. This is the fridge and table slides. When I'm out on the road on day trips, or even around camp when I'm evicted from the kitchen area, I can slide out my fridge, followed by my table setup, and this provides a standing work desk. It quite literally takes seconds to set up and pack away again, and is used all the time. Now, this whole rear drawer system and this fridge and table slide is something that I had installed in the Cruiser very early on, and I had to wait a long time to get it fitted, specifically this set from Custom Installations. Now, I've used it for many years now and probably had more use than most, and it's held up really, really well. The only thing I've had to do is just add a couple of extra bolts in the drawer runners for the main drawer, but otherwise it's been an absolutely fantastic system. I've got the electrical panels installed on either side for easy access to charging ports, battery information, airbag controls and air inflation gear. And this, combined with my personally designed and built Emu storage box, has been a perfect solution to my storage in my dedicated tourer. Now, if there's anything that a camper or a tourer needs more of, it's flat horizontal bench space. And not only does this solution take away the requirement to carry those bulky fold-out collapsible tables, but it quite literally takes seconds to pack away on the side of the road. Now, number 5 on my list is a product that gets used a whole lot more than I initially thought it would, and that is the 270-degree 30-second awning. Now, I initially purchased this in preparation for my Pilbara trip last year, as we were heading off into remote areas and free camping for an entire 3 weeks without the camper. Before we started our big lap around Australia, I was unsure as to whether to keep this installed or reinstall my much smaller and much lighter ARB traditional awning, but I am so glad that I kept this. This awning has got to be one of the best value for money 270-degree awnings on the market, given its features. And I spoke about them in detail in this dedicated video when it was brand new, but now after a year of hard use, it still remains my preferred product. When on that Pilbara trip, I believe that this awning quite literally saved our sanity. We were landlocked in remote areas of WA's northwest with consistent rain and multiple people trying to stay and sleep in dry conditions, and this awning combined with another became the centerpiece of our setup. It has never failed and nothing has broken on it, and it's worked exactly as designed. But the best part is it is simple and it is very quick to use, which means that, well, it gets used and gets used often. Well, I have purchased a lot of gear over the years. Some has lasted, some has not, but the items I listed today are products that have genuinely lasted the test of time and get used whether or not we're camping with this vehicle by itself or with our camper in tow. This list is highly subjective, and I know that everyone's needs and demands are vastly different, but I hope that at least one of these products have given you an idea of something that may be able to improve your touring setup. Now, I have done a lot of videos on specific items that I've mentioned today in much more detail, and I'll stick their links in the description below. But I hope you found this video useful, and we'll see you in the next episode of Exploring Oz. Cheers.